Distinguished ministers, dear entrepreneurs, and dear friends of Sweden and Estonia, I'm honored to welcome you all to the Estonian-Swedish virtual forum and matchmaking on the theme of smart and green mobility. Today's event is being streamed via YouTube in workshop platform, and the recording of the event will remain publicly accessible also after the event. Let me briefly introduce our agenda today. We will first receive statement from the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, Ms. Eva-Maria Liimets. Due to unforeseen circumstances, Minister for Foreign Trade and Nordic Affairs of Sweden, Ms. Anna Hallberg, won't be able to participate today as planned. But we have her full support, and she has assigned the State Secretary, Mr. Krister Nilsson, to speak in her place. After high-level statements, I will give the floor to our keynote speakers, Ms. Sofia Wennerstein and Mr. Indrek Kailan, who will tell us about smart mobility sector overview and current challenges in both Sweden and Estonia. Then we will proceed to a panel discussion led by urban strategist Mr. Pärtel Peeter Pere on future urban citizen mobility. I would like to invite you all to think along and send your questions through Q&A button. After the panel discussion, the public part of the visit will be over, and there will be a short break for coffee and a little stretch. The most important part of the event, private B2B and B2Gov meetings, will continue in the matchmaking platform, which you can find linked to the right on the screen. We have 10 Estonian and 10 Swedish companies participating in today's event. You can find each of their information and contact details in the expo area on the right of the screen. If you do not have a pre-booked meeting, you are very welcome to set up meetings with the participating companies in the matchmaking area. And now, let me proceed with welcoming the Minister of Foreign Affairs of Estonia, Ms. Eva-Maria Liimets. Please, Ms. Liimets, the floor is yours.
Dear friends of smart and green mobility in Estonia and Sweden, I'm honored to speak here at the first virtual business forum between Estonia and Sweden. It is an excellent opportunity to advance our country's economic cooperation during the COVID-19 restrictions we face in our region and highlight our excellent and diverse bilateral relations. Let me remind that 100 years ago, Sweden was one of the first countries who recognized the young Estonian Republic as an independent state and thereby helped to lay a strong basis for Estonia's future. The economic ties between our countries have continuously strengthened during the past 30 years. Today, Sweden is the largest foreign investor and the second largest export market for Estonia. Estonia is home to numerous Swedish companies. Swedish founders played a crucial role by planting the seed for what today is a vibrant startup ecosystem. The topic of this visit, smart and green mobility, is highly topical. We are embracing the green transition in our region and globally. We all can see already now that it will profoundly change our societies and economies. The rapid development of autonomous self-driving car technology, digitalization, and fast data exchange, combined with green transition goals, are the main drivers of innovation. Those components will accelerate a huge change in the transport sector and will force to rethink the whole business concept. Also, the current pandemic has underlined the need to rethink the functioning of our societies, including how we move around in our cities and regions and cross borders. The economic recovery from COVID pandemic offers us a possibility to speed up the process of green transition by using resources from the EU, in addition to national budgets and of financial institutions. While governments have a role in setting up the preconditions for green transition, enterprises are vital in implementing the change. Green transition is not simply a necessary and prudent choice to save the planet. It is a growth strategy for our societies and companies. Today, I can renew Estonia's commitment to green transition with a more ambitious agenda. The government is committing itself to achieve climate-neutral Estonia by 2050 and remains on course to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by 70% by 2030. To achieve this, we will play out the use of oil shale by 2040 and increase the share of renewables in our energy mix as fast as possible. We intend to make maximum use of the resources allocated to green transition purposes in the EU Crisis Fund, other funds, and the multi-annual budget. One of the areas where we intend to invest to reduce carbon emissions is transport. Also, we plan to increase investments in development of green technologies. Energy transition is a crucial part of green transition. This is very relevant for smart and green mobility. Electric scooters, bikes, cars, trucks, and trains are already here, and we need renewable energy sources to fuel this change. For our Baltic Sea region, the obvious solution is to harness more wind energy, especially offshore wind. We have started to implement the vision of an offshore grid in the Baltic Sea that would help the whole Nordic Baltic region to become climate neutral altogether. I am very glad that in recent years we have deepened our future-oriented cooperation. Swedish-Estonian Cooperation Fund was set up in 2018 to deepen contacts between Estonia and Sweden, focusing on young people, innovation, and economic cooperation. This spring we hope to launch a visionary report of future relations of Estonia and Sweden. We would like to map the ideas for our cooperation for next decades. Certainly, it includes research and development and innovation, bearing in mind the current green shift we are experiencing. Sweden is famous for its expertise in green innovation, including in smart and green mobility. We are very much interested in exchanging know-how and in cooperating with Sweden in these fields. The role of the business sector here cannot be underestimated. Dear friends, I'm confident that today's event will further encourage and open up cooperation opportunities for Estonian and Swedish stakeholders and entrepreneurs. I would like to thank organizers and once again thank all of you for participating in our very special virtual business forum. Have a fruitful discussion and business contacts. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Liimets, for these welcoming words. Next, I would like to invite Mr. Christer Nilsson, the State Secretary to Anna Hallberg, Minister for Foreign Trade and Nordic Affairs of Sweden, to take the stage. Please, Mr. Nilsson, the floor is yours.
Warmly welcome to this webinar on cooperation between Sweden and Estonia on smart and green mobility. This year we celebrate 100 years of diplomatic relations, as well as 30 years of re-establishment of diplomatic relations. Today's event forms a part of these celebrations. Our trade and economic relations are extensive. Sweden has historically been the largest foreign investor in Estonia with total investments over 6 billion euros. Today, there are more than 1,300 companies in Estonia with Swedish ownership, with a significant presence in banking, telecommunications, and retail. Our countries are fairly small, but we are big in smart ideas and technological innovations. We also share the common ambition to contribute to a green transition of our societies. Reducing emissions in the transport sector is a vital component in achieving carbon neutrality. The topic of the webinar today combines these elements in an excellent way. It is my hope that today's discussions will lead to concrete collaboration between Swedish and Estonian counterparts to find solutions to shared challenges with the help of technology. Together we can be more successful, shown not least by the inspiring success of Skype, in which entrepreneurs from both countries played a vital role. Thank you all for attending today, and best wishes for a fruitful and rewarding afternoon. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Christer Nilsson, for your substantive statement and good ideas. And now I would like to invite here Mrs. Sophie Wennerstein, the Director of Drive Sweden. Please, Ms. Wennerstein, the floor is yours.
I will try to give you a quick introduction to the mobility area. And now it says I'm waiting for connection for my clicker, so perhaps if I can get that started, because I have a couple of slides I would like to show. In the meantime, I could say that I represent Drive Sweden, which is the strategic innovation program funded by the government through Vinnova, Swedish Energy Agency, and Formas. So this is the perspective that I come from. And our vision is that Sweden takes a leading role in creating future mobility systems for people and goods that are sustainable, safe, and accessible for all. And we run a lot of program activities and project activities in order to test and create and develop connected, efficient, and automated transport systems. And at the next slide, the partnership is shown. It's over 160 partners from all sectors, society, academia, and the industry. And this I usually show because it shows a bit the complexity of the mobility system, that there are a lot of actors that need to collaborate about. And also interesting to see is that about 1/5 of these didn't even exist when we started 5 years ago. So a lot of innovation is driven from the startup sector, and almost half of them are SMEs. And at the next slide, you see 4 trends that you're all very well aware of, and they create, of course, a lot of opportunities for the mobility sector. And in Sweden, there is an extreme push for electrification from both industry and society. But it's not only to change from one traditional system into an electrified system, of course. We need solutions to solve the access to electricity that is in line with the demand in peak hours and in terminals and depots. And it's a totally new way of transport planning that we are looking at. Automation, this will of course provide a lot of possibilities for the sector. And even if the deployment of self-driving vehicles, personal vehicles, is not as quick as we thought 5 years ago, a lot is going on, and there's a lot you can do already now. Commercial schemes are being deployed in the freight sector and in the public transport sector. A lot of tests with minibuses, for example, also commercial schemes. And geofencing is a technique that is being deployed in the larger cities as a step in this direction. Speaking of automation, a fundamental part
Looks like Sophie is having some technical complications in connecting with us. I think we can wait for 3 seconds, and if Sophie cannot come back online, then we can move to our next keynote speaker. And I think we are going to continue with our event. So I would like to give the floor to our next keynote speaker, Mr. Indrek Kailan, who is the Director of Transport Development and Investments Department at Ministry of Economic Affairs of Estonia. Please, Mr. Kailan, the floor is yours.
Hello. I'm heard, or connection is good?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay. So, if we can put on the slides, and I'll be grateful. Thank you. Smart mobility in Estonia. My name is Indrek Kailan. As I said, I'm working in the Ministry of Economic Affairs and Communications in Estonia, and leading the head of the Transport Development and Investment Department. Enable clicker. Okay, it works. So in Estonia, we are talking about the goals: greener, smarter, seamless, digitalized society. So I think it's common for every country now. But what we can do for that, and what are solutions to develop future and further? Estonia is moving more and more towards implementing in everyday life, in March 2017, we made it legal to test self-driving vehicles on all national and local roads. In November 2020, Tallinn already had several self-driving buses in testing period, and they were commuting in real traffic as part of the city's public transport system. So that was a great challenge. And of the level 4 autonomous buses were developed by the Estonian-owned company. So can you see on a video that a person is making a public transport on-demand order from station? Of course, it can be done by pre-order from mobile too, but it's pretty cool stuff, isn't it? So to attain the level 5 autonomous driving, we also need to improve the perception of vehicles with the roadside smart infrastructure. For example, in Estonia, you could use a smart crosswalk. It's done by Bergman to pick down corners and the road users well in advance. For decisions made by road users attribute lack of information about the traffic environment. Consider it the primary cause of traffic accidents and pedestrian crosswalks. So therefore, we are using unregulated pedestrian crossings, which can monitor pedestrians. Next thing is public transport. Consider it to be critical service nowadays in Corona, especially, which must remain innovation through crisis. Alert is better in crisis. Solutions, payments. Paying a fare directly at the validator with a card is still a normal service worldwide. It's kind of surprising that it is. There are only few cities in region where such service is provided. For example, Estonian capital Tallinn, biggest city Tartu, and Malmo with surrounding region in Sweden. The solution is provided by Estonian company Ridango. Estonia is also developing a layer for all mobilities. This can really be public and private transport. A standardized ride request platform called Maas XT. It's developed by Modern Mobility. This kind of solution would enable new service groups where people would plan trips using different modes with the touch and purchase necessary. It's pretty cool stuff when it works and comes together, brings together the private and public sector. And Bikekeep, this already public transport in one card in Estonia, of the city of Tartu. It's very cool and convenient. You can use public transport and the bike network to do all your trips. It's very popular in Tartu. You should go and see it yourself. And that's about it. The question is, are we going quick enough? And if we are not, then we could go maybe together and reach the goals quicker. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Kailan, for this interesting overview of Estonian smart mobility sector. And I think now we have Sophie also back online. Yes, Sophie, can you hear us?
Yes, I can. I'm sorry about that.
No worries. We can hear you again as well. And please, I would like you to continue where you dropped off.
Okay, thank you very much. Well, actually, if you take the next slide on the 5 pieces of the puzzle, mainly what I wanted to say was that we need to work in this system perspective in order to implement all of this technology. So it's not really enough with only technology. So the business model development is extremely crucial, of course, to innovate and to build new partnerships, to work with the policy development, because often regulations are not adapted to tomorrow's solutions. And what we do, we work in a policy lab where we try to dig and really identify the obstacles and solve them in joint partnerships then. And we probably need to work even more also with incentive structures in the future. And the society planning and the public physical planning processes in authorities and cities also need to enable new technology and service at the same time as we must make sure that the development is in line with the societal goals, of course. And last but not least, the public engagement is, of course, crucial to involve the end users in the innovation processes, since we really need to know that the solutions actually benefit somebody. So to finalize, the collaboration works as its best when we build on actual problems. You need the necessary actors gathered around the same table or digital table, and that we can create an increased understanding about different goals, needs, and different time horizons. So I look forward to this deepened collaboration with Estonia, and yes, over to you.
Ms. Wennerstein, for this interesting overview and the priorities in the smart mobility sector. And now, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to open a panel discussion on future urban citizen mobility and give the floor and the lead to our panel moderator, Mr. Pärtel Peeter Pere, who is an urban strategist and partnership manager at FIMA. Please, Mr. Pere, the floor is yours.
Hey, hello everybody. My name is Pärtel and it's a pleasure to be here today. I hope you all are well, given the circumstances that we all are in today. We have a short and interesting panel ahead of us where we will focus on a very timely issue: how to decrease the use of private vehicles with the use of technology. So what can we do to get people moving and living in a more sustainable way in cities today? So we have about 20 minutes to discuss this topic with very interesting people, and we will then have about 10 minutes to take some of your questions. So do send them in if you have any. And feel free to take screenshots and share some comments and insights that you may have. Without further ado, we have here today Lilia Halsen-Bidar, who works with traffic information at the city of Gothenburg, Sophie Wennerstein from Drive Sweden, who just spoke, and then from Estonia we have Jaagup Ainsalu, who represents Tallinn Transport Department, and Mr. Argo Verk, who represents ITS Estonia and Ridango. Could I just ask you all to give a very, very short introduction who you are? Just take about 1 minute. Sophie, I hope you don't mind if we skip you, for you just spoke. So Lilia, perhaps you can go first.
Okay, thank you very much for the introduction, and thank you for welcoming me to this event. My name is Lilia Halsen-Bidar. I work, as you said, as a unit manager at the Urban Transport Administration in the city of Gothenburg. Our mission is, of course, to provide a sustainable transport system for all our transport users and all travel modes. We do this by providing different mobility services, both digital and physical. For example, traffic information, bike travel planners, and also a bike sharing system. We have a long tradition in Gothenburg in cooperation and innovation together with industry and the academia. And what we face when we look at the road to automation, which is on the table and the subject for today, we see that we need to improve the knowledge or digital knowledge of the public sector. And we also need to be together and to do the development step by step. We also need to have the politicians with us and to have a political commitment in order for us to find the organization and the financing of all this development.
All
lately,
right.
we have... Okay. Thank you.
Sorry, this is exciting stuff. This is exactly what we are here for, but we'll get into the heart of the matter in just a second. Can we continue? Jakob, can you just briefly introduce who you are?
Yes, hello everybody. I'm honored to be here today. Thank you for the organizers that you invite me. My name is Jakob Painsalu. I work in Tallinn Transport Department, basically smart mobility. And I have been leading several European projects like self-driving bus projects and artificial intelligence and logistics. So, and I'm very interested that City of Tallinn are a livable city for everybody, and we are trying to focus the innovation and automation that we have a better services in our citizens. So, yeah, it's just my introduction today.
Cool stuff. Thanks very much. Argo.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Argo Verk, and as Pärtel already said, I represent ITS Estonia. ITS Estonia is a network of private companies and public sector organizations. And as the name says, we concentrate on intelligent transport systems. And smart mobility, which is a main topic here at the conference, is a very important topic also within ITS Estonia. And in everyday life, I'm head of sales at Tridango, which is an international technology company with a focus on IT solutions for public transport, ticketing, payment, real time. Thank you.
Cool stuff. I'll be your moderator. I'm an urban strategist, and every day I work at a company called Fimer, where we use artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we take video feeds of cameras in urban areas, for example, so we can look at traffic and the flow of people and bicycles and electric scooters and the like. And currently we're working with an interesting project in London, for example, where there's an old Olympic village that is now being transformed into a new urban area. It's given new functions. So we're also at the forefront of dealing with these urban challenges. So how can you put more people moving in places, and how can you be better equipped with the changes that are coming so fast? And before we get into the technological side of things, that is what we are here for. May I just throw you a big open question to the panel for everyone to contribute? Sophie, let's begin with you, so you can have a word in as well. But this is a question to everybody, so feel free to pitch in. The question is, how can we change the mentality of ordinary citizens and decision makers if we want to nudge them, to motivate them into moving in a more greener and sustainable way? So how can we change the mindsets of ordinary citizens and decision makers?
Yeah,
Sophie, maybe you can begin.
Yeah. If I start then, this is one of the key questions, of course, so not an easy one. But what we stress a lot as an innovation program is that whether we are a societal actor or from industry, it's really crucial that we together test and develop solutions in real environments, so that we actually understand the challenges connected to people's behavior. And we also need to develop methods to really understand what does people's everyday lives look like, so that we can understand what kind of transport solutions can actually help their daily lives to get better. And we think that by testing and showing things that they can feel and really in real life, like all these minibus tests that has been going on in many countries, they're very good because then the people actually see that this is happening right now. So yeah, that's one thing that I would like to bring forward.
Very interesting pilot projects and giving people a real taste of things. Anyone else? How can we nudge and motivate people?
I can continue, maybe.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll continue then. It's important also to increase the knowledge of the citizens of sustainable transport modes. And this we can do through different information campaigns, but also in cooperation with different actors like local actors, business organizations, branch organizations, and building and construction companies and so on. But we also have to not to forget that the physical infrastructure has to be improved for bike lanes and also for making the travel times of public transport, for example, much faster. So we need to also, as Sophie said, act to the society changes and to know how the citizens' digital behavior and also transport needs change over time. So I think these are important aspects.
That's interesting. Motivating the doing informational campaigns and also improving cycling and pedestrian infrastructure and public transport. So may I just ask, these campaigns, I mean, do these include also like sort of the normal stuff that encouraging children to walk to school or encouraging parents to let their children walk to school, even sort of mundane, normal stuff like this?
Yes, and we have been doing that for many years, and we have a toolbox, but we need to cooperate with the actors and to find the specific tool that is the most suitable for the particular goal you have.
Mm-hmm. It's ongoing work. Argo, you wanted to say something as well?
Yes, when we talk about nudging people, then I think we need to consider it in general. Public transport is more sustainable than every single citizen driving his or her private car. So there is a lot to be made that, let's say, the public transport or public sector can make public transport more appealing by, for example, improving the offering, redesigning the route network to match changed needs. The network layout is sometimes decades old and doesn't fit into people's moving patterns. Modernizing the fleet, comfortable, warm or cool vehicles depending on the weather conditions. Combining traditional fixed route and scheduled transport with demand-responsive solutions, offering and adding travel options for people who don't live near the bus stops. Adding micromobility and car sharing into the mix. It was already mentioned, the communication and marketing. And I think from the private sector, the private companies can bring on the table the experience from other countries and regions, because many technology companies, for example, are globally active and they can introduce the best practices from other regions. And I think we shouldn't underestimate the innovation part, which mostly comes from the private sectors, because if the business models are available for having all sorts of proof of concepts or piloting, then such innovation drives.
Great. Jakob, would you like to contribute as well, or shall we take the next question?
No, maybe I can just add in city side that I'm also that innovation fate, that innovation is the key word for this kind of nudging of the people, and like Argo said, that most of the innovation is coming for the private sector. So like in city in Tallinn, we have like very good cooperation with different kind of like innovation companies, and we have been done self-driving bus tests and so on and so on. And we in this summer we are like trying to integrate the micromobility in a public transportation. And I think in the city side, the public sector has to be like very open-minded and to not afraid to do something wrong, because the sustainable transport innovation is coming in different mix of the movements. And I think it's also very important to learn other cities also what they have been done and what is maybe not so good. So
I think those are very encouraging words from the city of Tallinn, that the public sector should be more open to innovation and try and test things, just like the private sector is doing anyway. But of course, it's more difficult to do that with public money. But nonetheless, we need to test things. Wonderful. Before we get into even deeper into these technological opportunities that we have, what do you think? Before we talk about potential solutions, let's talk about challenges. What do you think, shortly, what is the key, the most acute, biggest bottleneck that we currently have when it comes to sustainable mobility? What is the most urgent thing you think we should solve?
yeah, maybe
it's an open question too. Yes, please go ahead.
Yeah, I can take the floor. That I have a very good example that I think the open-minded is the key word that in the bottleneck, because last year we had self-driving bus tests in Estonia, and the funny thing was that the south of the Estonian and out of the Tallinn region class wants to come to see the Tallinn, the self-driving bus, because it was like something new. But in other hand, we have to explain in other people why we spend so much money of this kind of small bus. So I think the communication and the like open-minded is the key word. That if every stakeholder are like used to be or like open-minded, then it's much more easier to go on.
Sir, what is the
microphone.
Microphone?
It's all right now.
Okay, it wasn't on my side, sorry. It is always tricky to answer what is the single biggest problem, as usually it is a combination of many. I think, once again, one thing we need to consider is that there cannot be a single solution for every situation or every country or every region. The tools for moving towards sustainability are different. In some places, it may be replacing the fleet with zero emission buses. In some places, it perhaps incentivizing and supporting rail traffic, but in maybe some rural areas, it may very well be just a community initiative to share cars. So it's not like one size fits it all thing, but rather delicate combination of different methods. But if I would need to point out one single bottleneck, which I feel is the biggest, and in the end, I think it comes down to every single individual's mindset. Are we willing to change our habits? Are we willing to change our expectations towards mobility?
See, there we are. We're all people working with technology in one way or another, but we still come back to the sort of human factor, and then how could we change the way we each individually move. Sophie, would you like to say something as well about the most immediate bottleneck you see?
Yeah, perhaps not one single, but rather the need for a system transformation. I come back to that we really need to stop working in our silos. We need to collaborate in order to manage the system transformation that is needed, and that the other two have already said, a mental shift that needs to happen. So we need to work together, businesses, industries, because if the society planning processes do not enable the technological solutions, then nothing will really happen. So in I mean, at scale. It can happen in tests and so on. And if we don't involve the industry actors or the companies that can actually take the solutions into commercialization, then we also stop at the test phase. So I think that this system transformation demands collaboration in totally new ways than we are used to. So yeah, maybe not a bottleneck answer, but that's what I think is.
No, but we're getting closer. We're getting closer. If you mention working in silos, then these self-driving vehicles, they're often tested in sort of these designated, isolated areas, right? Did you know that in Estonia, in already 2017, in March, in fact, so 3 years ago, we legalized the testing of self-driving cars on public roads. So you can have a self-driving car on streets here. So you can either, but the driver needs to be sort of present. So you can either sit in the car as a driver or operator, or you can then be present remotely and then intervene if needed. Can you in Sweden test or run self-driving cars on public roads as well?
Are you asking me? I mean, yes.
I'm asking the Swedes, yes.
Yeah, we can ask. Well, I think that it is in. I am not really keen on answering for the whole Sweden because maybe I don't have the latest information. So I prefer not to say. But there are a lot of as you say, in designated areas. There are a lot going on. And especially, as I said before, in the freight sector and in the public transport sector, perhaps quicker. So I don't know if... Yeah.
Well, in any case, sorry to put you in the spot like that. In any case, should you wish to test, or some companies would like to test their technology on public streets, then it's possible in Estonia. In any case, right. But let's perhaps move towards the technological side of things. So what do you think are the best technologies or most suitable in enabling sustainable urban mobility? So if we think about the whole spectrum of things, we have self-driving cars, we have tracking of bicycles, vehicles, gamification, like the Green Capital of Europe this year, Lahti in Finland. They have an app that gives you credits for walking, taking a bicycle, or public transport. So you can buy stuff or get discounts in certain places in the city. So gamification, we have dockless bike sharing, mobility as a service, etc. Uber, Lyft, Bolt, Voi, all of these micro-mobility providers. So it's a rich world of technologies within mobility. What sort of technology would you point out that is the best or among the best enablers of sustainable urban mobility? May I ask, for example, in Gothenburg, what is your technology of choice? What do you like the most working with? What do you find the most promising technology?
As I said in my introduction, we have been working together with the industry and academia for a long time for innovation. And what we can see now with the new mobility is a shift from shared mobility, from private-owned vehicles to shared mobility. And what that means is that we see that the new that data is the new gold, and this is the fundamental to all the business models and potential income for transport providers. And I think even for us as a public actor, to have knowledge of the user's travel behavior and their preferences in the transport system is a key issue. So to have more data and knowledge about our users is one of the keys. And but we also need to digitalize our transport system, and we have been doing that for many years. And one particular technology is geofence. I know Sophie also mentioned it, which is a way of sharing traffic rules in a digital way. And we do that to, for example, share the speed limits or to the shift from fossil to electric powertrain. And we have been working with the digitalization of traffic rules for many years. But now with the connected vehicles, smartphones available, this development can really be boosted, and we have a lot of different projects ongoing related to geofencing. And another thing that you also mentioned was mobility as a service. And we have, as I said, the bike sharing system in Gothenburg that we would like to integrate with the public transport and also the parking company of Gothenburg. So this work is going on. I know there has been a lot of pilots on this, both ongoing and previously for many years. But we need to go from pilots to real implementation. So that's where we are working just now.
Geofencing is probably something that, so we're talking electric scooters and micromobility. What do you think? It seems to be a technology or a need for many cities, because it's great to have electric scooters, right? People love it. It's popular. It's growing. It's an industry on the rise. However, they're all over the place, aren't they? From Paris to Tallinn to other cities. People park them. Well, I guess you cannot call it parking, can you?
If I can continue, that's right. And since late 2019, when the first scooters arrived in Gothenburg, we have been putting a lot of resources into this. We have had to shift our work into really dealing with this, both to regulate the companies in different ways, find out how is their legislation, what can we and what can we not do related to this. Is it a complement? What do we think, and how do we want to use it? And also the user complaints, as you say, they are all over. And should we put our resources to remove wrongly parked electric scooters? These are very, very actual questions, taking up a lot of time for our administration, but also for the politicians. So it's really, and we can use geofence, and we will try to test a tool in order to control and follow up and have data from all the different companies. This is a project that we are starting up right now.
Very interesting, thank you. Anyone else? So the topic here was technologies and which would be the best enablers for sustainable mobility.
Maybe I can add. Or Argo. No, just
go ahead, Jan.
Can add. Okay, thank you. I just can add something in city side that I can just pop up what we have done and what is our plans. So, like what we have done is like previously said that we have done several times the self-driving vehicles bus tests already. We had one pilot with companies like Fuma right now, in camera feed counting pilot, and we see that it's working very well, and we want to move on. And like previously speaker mentioned that micromobility is one of the key words, I think, also in this summer in Tallinn, because we want to like integrate the micromobility in a public transport, and we hope that we will release with cooperation with the private company the bicycle, like sharing points, and yeah, we already have new ticketing system. We're already planning something also with green points, like Lahti done it, and also we would like to do some of the pilot in Maas, like mobility as a service. So yeah.
Can I add?
Argo? Yes.
Yeah. I very much agree with Jaago, but when we talk about sustainable urban mobility and technologies, then actually pragmatically said, probably the quickest change will be achieved through, I don't know, low and zero emission public transport vehicles, and including small autonomous vehicles for the first and last mile of the journey. When you talk about mobility as a service, or combining ride-hailing like Uber, Lyft or Bolt with public transit offering and adding micro-mobility, for me, these are first and foremost new business models. It's not so much about the technology. And of course, I mean, the new business models are required as well. I don't argue with that. And these are one of the key elements to create this environment which support the rise of the new approaches. But this is not so much about the technology, but rather the business model.
That's a very interesting point indeed. So business models and the way we look at things and deploy existing technologies. Sophie, would you like to add something here as well on autonomous vehicles?
No, not really on that, but I would say that perhaps not point out a particular technology, but rather any technology really that enable more flexible transport and shared, as the other speakers have been talking about, shared transport. Because I think that it's there are many technologies that can actually help in this direction, and if we focus on shared mobility, whether it's for freight or people, I think it's really a step in the right direction, away from one person in each car, or half-loaded freight vehicles, etc. And flexible, being if we can use the existing cars, existing trucks, infrastructure in a more efficient way. For example, by deliveries off peak at night, or digital locks for easier delivery, or so on. I think we have a lot to win. So rather to set up what goals do we actually have, what do we think will help the transport system become more sustainable. And I think then flexibility and sharing is one such thing, and then be open to new technologies. Well, we can see in the discussions later, maybe there are a lot of new technologies in the pipeline that we don't even know about. Nobody knew about the scooters, for example, a few years ago. So that's why I think it's so exciting with all the startups and SMEs that are now really driving innovation in this sector.
Indeed. Perhaps as a last question then, before we wrap this up in a few minutes, the last mile issue in logistics and freight was mentioned. So if we think about pollution and that people are ordering more goods online, and they were doing this even before the pandemic hit, so more food deliveries, more online shopping, and so this is on the rise. And last mile delivery is already contributing a good 41% of total logistics cost, and it is highly polluting as well, with the World Economic Forum forecasting that it will contribute to a 32% increase in emissions. So traffic delivery, that the emissions will only increase. So the last mile issue is a problem, and it will be increasingly a problem. To end the panel here, well, how do you see the future of last mile deliveries? What new business models or technologies could come into play there?
Yep, maybe I can also start. In the freight and the logistics, I think the nowadays are changing, because if we look the old town in Tallinn. The freight trucks are right now like can go inside the old town 6 a.m. until the 10 a.m. in the morning. So it means that the rest of the day they're not allowed to drive in old town. So I see that this kind of startups and just last mile solutions can help us our companies to deliver their products to the old town. So I see that the logistics are changing in our like future right now, and this kind of like startups can help us very very good for our companies.
Yes, I fully agree, and also I think when you talk about supply chains, last mile, then we see it already in Estonia and all over the world that the parcel robots and the automated pickup points and the installation for this is a booming sector, and there are also ones for private use already in the market, which is kind of a new thing completely. There are pilots for drone deliveries, all sorts of delivery robots which drive around the city, like Starship, for example, will become more popular. But just it's not about the supply chain, but regarding the last mile, I would like to come back to the mindset in general that we as a people, we need to learn to walk and cycle more than we do. So if the package is somewhere in the parcel robot, we need to go and walk to that and bring our package home. It doesn't need to be at your home always.
I say a big yes to that. We need to walk more. We are humans after all. Lilia, Sophie, what are your points of view?
Well, I think that one size does not fit all. I think you need to work locally with the local actors and see exactly what the problem is. As a public authority, one part that is our role could be to find areas for locating, so last mile terminals or switch terminals. Normally, goods terminals are outside the city. We need to find space for it inside the city and work on find the real problem that you want to solve in the local area, and do that in cooperation with the partners and transport companies and also the businesses in the area.
Great, wonderful. Sophie, you have the last word.
Well, I think so much clever things have already been said on this topic, but I think what I stressed earlier, just to add something that's also here, a more flexible use of the system, so that the last mile can be more smaller units, but then they need to be consolidated at some point, and so totally new way of thinking when it comes to the logistics system, and that will demand totally new business models and a mindset to open up to do that, because that will mean also data sharing and in ways that you are not used to, etc. So yeah, not so much to add really.
All right. Well, it's an interesting topic. I'm sure we would continue this for a longer time. However, we need to move on with our program. So thank you very much, Lilia, Jakob, Argo, and Sophie, for an interesting discussion. And we'll go back to the studio. Over to you, Agathe.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Pere, and thank you for all of our panelists for this indeed interesting, future and forward-looking and indeed even enlightening discussion. Thank you. Honored ministers, dear keynote speakers, panelists, participants, this brings us to the end of the first part of our virtual business forum between Estonia and Sweden today. Thank you very much for being part of this great collaboration. Now, we are going to have a short break, and in 10 minutes, the bilateral meetings continue. Everyone who had pre-arranged their meetings should have received an email with joining information. The ones who did not have pre-arranged meetings, you can request meetings with the companies in the matchmaking area, which you can find in the sidebar on the right. If you wish to set up a meeting for a different date and time, I highly encourage you to contact the companies directly via email addresses that you will find under their profiles in the expo area. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you again for joining us today, and I hope you will have a wonderful networking, and I hope you all stay healthy and safe.